Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is considering whether former President Trump should be immune from prosecution over his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. The justices heard historic arguments yesterday over Trump's claim of absolute immunity for any official acts he made while in office. Some justices seemed skeptical, but others appeared to agree that presidents need some protection from criminal prosecution. Their potential ruling could affect when or whether Trump will stand trial for his actions on and around January 6th and set a precedent for future presidents. ABC News Supreme Court contributor Kate Shaw joins me now for more on that. Kate, earlier today, outside the Manhattan Criminal Court, former President Trump said he thought the arguments at the Supreme Court yesterday went well, saying the justices asked good questions. What did you make of the arguments and the justices' reactions?
Well, Diane, I understand why he said that. I think that going into this argument, many people, myself included, thought that these arguments had a very uphill battle at the Supreme Court. So Trump is asking for a really novel ruling from the court that ex-presidents are absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for anything they do as president. And that's not something the court has ever endorsed or even hinted at previously. Typically, when you're asking for a totally novel ruling, the burden is on you to convince the court of the correctness of your position. But a lot of the justices seem to approach this argument with skepticism about the idea of prosecuting an ex-president rather than skepticism about the idea of immunity. So I do think that, at least as to the conservative justices, most of them, Amy Coney Barrett might have been an exception, but most of the bench was at least moderately, and some of the justices very sympathetic to Trump and his arguments yesterday.
Now, Kate, Trump's attorney did concede that personal or private acts should not get immunity, in their opinion. We then heard a lot of hypotheticals around what could be considered an official act versus a private act. And I want to play for you an exchange that Trump's attorney had with Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
Kate, what did you think of that argument, that even assassinating a political rival, according to Trump's attorney, could be considered an official act immune from criminal prosecution?
That was a pretty stunning moment, Diane. There was a similar moment when Justice Elena Kagan asked about a president directing his military to stage a coup. And similarly, Trump's lawyer said that, depending on the facts, could be an official act. So just to take a minute to think about what that means, if the court embraces some version of immunity, a future president could order an assassination, could direct a coup, and this rule would mean that president, even after leaving office, could never be criminally prosecuted for that conduct. So it's really a chilling assertion. The court hasn't embraced it yet, but that certainly is the argument, and it could have profound ramifications for every future American president, at least as to acts that can be characterized as official, which, as we saw from this argument, the position that Trump was taking is that's a really broad category of even unbelievably disturbing and anti-democratic conduct.
That said, I think it was Justice Alito brought up that, with a creative prosecutor, you could see presidents facing, wrongful prosecutions left and right, especially now that the door has been opened with this case. Do the justices have to consider the impact that the existence of this very case could have on future presidents?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was clear from the arguments that the justices are thinking not just about this January 6th prosecution and not just about Donald Trump, but all future American presidents. And Alito and a couple of other justices did seem quite concerned about the prospect of kind of the threat of prosecution hanging over future presidents and chilling them in their ability to, fully exercise the powers of the presidency, and maybe, a world of tit for tat coming where every president prosecutes their predecessor. And those kinds of concerns were very front of mind for Alito and a couple of the other justices, but far less front of mind, at least as the argument suggested, were the consequences of announcing immunity, right? The consequences of insulating presidential misconduct from any future criminal, consequences. And so there was a real asymmetry, I thought, in some of the concerns that the justices were voicing about what a ruling might mean for future American presidents.
All right, ABC News Supreme Court contributor Kate Shaw, thank you.